Thank you for watching Scary Bear Attacks. If you like this episode, please remember to hit the like button and leave a comment or two, then subscribe and click on the bell to receive notifications of whenever we release new videos. Also, please remember to share them to your social media.
Welcome back to Scary Bear Attacks.
Today's episode takes us to what seems like, to me, an unlikely location for a bear attack. When someone mentions New Mexico, you probably think of the arid deserts and Spanish architecture that characterize the majority of the state. The last thing I think of is giant black bears. Well, the last thing I think of is leopard seals, but black bears are right up there on the list. Just south of the good side of the Colorado border lies a small town called Raton. To the northwest of the city is a broad expanse of rolling wooded mountains packed with elk and deer. The pine, spruce, and juniper stands cover the land like an emerald blanket and provide shade and shelter for predator and prey alike. There are cougars, gray wolves, coyotes, foxes, and somewhere between 5,000 and 6,000 black bears. On the morning of July 25, 2018, local rancher Bridger Petrini was taking his bear hunting dogs out for a stroll. The fall bear season in New Mexico was a few weeks away, and he and his dogs were fine-tuning their skills. Bridger's father was a licensed professional guide in New Mexico. He started the business in 1985 and about 8 years ago sold it to Bridger to keep it in the family. Since then, Bridger had been the driving force behind the success of his family's guide service, and later on in the day, he had some business in town to tend to. Bridger led his dogs away from their home, down a rural road meandering through the junipers. There were many animals near his home, and it wasn't rare to see them or have his dogs react to them. He lived in this home with his wife Janelle and their 4 children. The kids experienced an embrace of nature many children never feel. As his dogs sniffed and explored, they came across a familiar scent along the road. Their ears perked up, and they suddenly bolted from the roadside and into the tree, baying as they went. Bridger knew this was the behavior they exhibited when they were on a bear scent trail, and was immediately alarmed at what he knew was to come. When hunting bears with hounds, the dogs are typically bound in kennels to keep them from obeying their training and breed instincts. They are bred to immediately and continuously pursue a bear until it is treed or cornered so that humans can either kill it or pull them off of the scent trail and back to their kennels. Without direct control over the dogs, this action was unstoppable until the chase culminated in the bear being treed or cornered. Hearing the commotion from the house, Bridger's 10-year-old son, whom we will call Daniel, yelled out to his father. He asked if he could help his dad round up the dogs and received an affirming reply, as well as instructions to bring the Kawasaki mule for the pair to ride on as they followed the baying hounds. In just a few moments, Daniel showed up as his father directed him to. Bridger had brought his cell phone along but wasn't packing a firearm or bear spray. Janelle called him and asked him to come back and pick up his sister so that she could see a bear for the first time. Bridger knew this situation was not ideal and told Janelle that the dogs had to be pulled off the bear's scent trail immediately to avoid injury to any animals involved. Daniel and his father put it along on the mule to finish rounding up their hounds. Janelle and Bridger's sister hopped into the family vehicle, a Toyota Tacoma, and began following the pursuit as best they could from the road. Janelle packed the 3 kids and Bridger's sister in the truck and departed the home, knowing that they may be able to see the bear at some point and would be able to reach Bridger and Daniel on the cell phone as they searched. Given the altitude of 6,500 feet and the moderate temperatures on the day, the bear and the dogs were soon tired. It was in the upper 80s, and that is fairly warm for this high up, so the conditions took their toll on the critters quickly. When hounds pursue a bear, it will try to run away or find a tree to climb. In the event it cannot find an escape in either of those ways, it will eventually turn around and stand its ground to fight its pursuers. This is exactly what happened beneath a rocky outcropping. Bridger could tell by the way the dogs bayed that the bear was not moving anymore, and knew that this may be a good chance to gather his hounds, so he and Daniel hurried to the location as quickly as the mule would carry them. As Bridger and Daniel approached the standoff, Bridger instructed Janelle and the occupants of the truck to park a ways away as he pulled the hounds off. He had pulled hounds off of scent trails and cornered animals many times before and didn't expect this time to be any different. He wasn't prepared like he would be when he was hunting with a client, but had to do what was necessary in less than ideal circumstances. Before Bridger returned to the bear and hounds, he reached inside his truck and pulled out his Glock Model 20 10mm pistol and stuffed it beneath his belt. Bridger's pistol was his standard sidearm when he guided bear hunting clients. He loaded it with 175-grain Hornady critical-duty flex-lock bullets. This bullet is a hollow-point round with a special polymer filler in the hole. This feature is designed to keep the bullet from being pulled apart by fibrous materials like clothing or hair. The bullet will penetrate further into flesh before opening up and mushrooming, imparting its force deeper into tissues instead of just beneath the skin. This allows the bullet to penetrate around 18 inches of flesh, wreaking havoc on anything living its impact. This particular round is designed with reduced recoil to allow for faster and more accurate shooting, and is deliberately designed with less power than a typical 10mm round. As Bridger turned around and headed back toward the bear and hounds, his daughter tried to follow him but was called back by Janelle to the safety of the truck. As Bridger trudged along his path, the countless times he had seen Black Bear turn tail and run at the sight or scent of a man emboldened him. He expected nothing different this day and hoped to soon have his schedule and plans back on track. Across this small, flat area were strewn kitchen appliance-sized boulders, which Bridger used to bound across in his approach. As he rounded a low-growing cedar tree, his hounds and the bear came into view. He was now only about 20 feet from one of the bigger, cinnamon-colored black bears he had ever seen. His experience told him this bear weighed around 400 pounds and was unique for the area. Bridger considered pulling his cell phone out and recording the bear for his own records, but that is when everything this experienced bear hunting guide knew betrayed him and would put him in a perilous confrontation with this bear. Some people say bears are a lot like people. Each one has its own reaction to any particular stimulus. People are unpredictable, but bears are unpredictable and much more dangerous. As soon as the bear locked eyes with Bridger, it pinned its ears back and lowered its head. He knew this meant that this bear was focusing its anger on him, and that wasn't a good thing. He immediately dropped his cell phone and reached for his Glock in his waistband. It has been reported by people who experience terrifying situations that their brain goes into a hyperdrive of sorts. Fast events are somehow slowed down, and every detail is magnified and analyzed by those who experience this phenomenon. As he watched the bear's paws stretch out toward him, initiating a charge, Bridger knew this was not a situation to fire warning shots. The bear was too close for half measures and too large to dismiss its intentions. His mind quickly determined that if he fired at the bear's head and missed, he might shoot one of his dogs, but aiming at the massive body of the bear was his best bet. He quickly fired 3 rounds, center mass, toward the bear as it took its next few bounds toward him. The bullets hit home, and the bear reacted in pain and anger. It spun in circles, biting at the searing bullet burrowing into its flesh, a mere 6 feet from the muzzle of Bridger's pistol. Seeing the bear temporarily distracted by the pain and impact of the bullets, Bridger decided to put more room between himself and the bear. He managed to hop from boulder to boulder. Midway through his third leap to the next boulder, he witnessed his hounds racing past him. He knew that this was because they were being pursued by the now wounded and enraged bear. As he landed on the third boulder, he spun to face the bear and saw its eyes still fixed on his and filled with anger. He could see the muscles rippling beneath its thick hide and fur. His mind processed every detail. How its claws slapped the ground as they dug in while it bounded toward him, and how its teeth glistened from the saliva frothing from its mouth. Bridger didn't even have enough time to pull the trigger again before the bear bowled into him. It tackled him like a furry NFL linebacker, and the pair tumbled down the rocky slope. As they rolled down the hill, the bear continued its focused attack with uninterrupted intensity. It seemed to process every detail even faster than Bridger's mind could comprehend. He fired his pistol a few times as they tumbled, but later didn't recall firing any. He grasped his Glock as if his life depended on it, as it clearly did. As they wrestled while falling down the slope, they broke tree branches and smashed their way through the brush in a chaotic flash of teeth, claws, and belabored grunts. They eventually came to rest, wedged between a few larger boulders. Bridger's arms and legs were all tangled up with the bear's, and he quickly worked to free himself. Bridger knew his Glock held about 12 rounds in the clip. He knew he had fired 3 shots at the bear initially, but didn't recall firing a few during the tumble. As the bear rose to its hind legs, Bridger believed he should still have around 9 rounds left in his Glock. With the bear now only 1 foot away from the muzzle of his pistol, he fired into its chest before slipping further down the slope once again. When he finally stopped sliding, Bridger yelled toward Janelle to stay away and keep the kids away. The bear was once again on him before he could process it. Bridger stretched his legs up and kicked at the bear as it tried to straddle him with its front legs. He knew the bear would try to use its weight to hold him down so that it could bite his body, neck, or head. He fought for all his worth to prevent this from happening. He had the wherewithal to know that he couldn't shoot it while he flailed his legs at it. Bridger kicked at the bear's head, and the bear dodged it. Its head was now between his legs, and it sank its 1 1/2 inch canines into the flesh of his inner thigh muscle. The bear easily picked him up a few feet in the air as Bridger pressed the muzzle of his pistol into the fur of its neck. He knew if he could shatter its spine, it may immobilize the bear. He squeezed the trigger, and the bear released its grip on his thigh. The bear didn't fall over, immobilized as Bridger had hoped, and quickly latched its jaws onto his right calf muscle. He saw a great opening for a headshot in the bear and pressed the muzzle into its fur once again and pulled the trigger. Instead of hearing the roar of another round fired, Bridger heard a disheartening click. The bear continued its attack on him as he racked another round into the chamber of his pistol, watching a live round slowly spin from his Glock. It was a fraction of a second before another close headshot was offered by the bear as it tried to tear the flesh of his calf muscle from bone. Again, Bridger pressed his Glock against the fur of the bear head and squeezed the trigger. This time a resounding clap roared from his Glock. The bear collapsed partially on top of Bridger, and the shift in weight sent both sliding down the slope once again. Bridger was face down with his head pointed downhill as they stopped sliding on the steep rock slope. The bear was above him and lay in a motionless, massive ball of splayed legs. Bridger tried to pull himself free from the bear, but its jaws were still tightly clamped onto his calf muscle. As they had tumbled and slid the last time, Bridger's flesh had become twisted around the bear's nose, preventing its jaws from releasing. Bridger was pinned between 2 boulders, and each time he tried to move, pain seared through his leg as the bear's immense size and clamped jaws stretched his calf muscle and flesh to its limits. He felt consciousness fading each time he tried to pull his leg free from the bear's teeth. Due to how he was contorted after the last fall, he couldn't see the bear. He reached his hand behind him and felt the bear's teeth with something moist in between them. He could feel his calf muscle still pinched between the bear's teeth. He couldn't move to free himself and was held in this hopeless position. Back at the truck, Janelle heard the shots fired by Bridger as well as his screams. She knew this was bad and couldn't hold back her need to help and make sure her husband was safe. She fought the children's desire to run to their father's aid and ordered them to remain in the truck with her. After a few seconds of unnerving silence, Janelle yelled at her husband and asked where the bear was. She was relieved to hear Bridger's reply that the bear was dead. Janelle and the kids all streamed from the truck and scurried around the slope to Bridger's side. Janelle could now see how the bear's jaws were wrapped in Bridger's flesh, forcing them closed. She tried to free his calf from the bear's jaws, but each time she moved any part of him or the bear, it caused Bridger to recoil in pain. The bear was far too massive for her to move and was wedged between boulders, holding it fast. Janelle immediately began placing call after call on her cell phone. She called the police and then went through their entire contact list of family and friends whom she thought may be able to help. She gathered the children together and prayed for help and peace over the situation. Within about 20 minutes, 5 of their friends had shown up to help. As strong as they were unable to dislodge the bear from its wedged location due to its immense size. Between the brush and boulders holding the bear, the men had to search for another way to get this bear to release its grip. Janelle's brother Brad was one of the men who responded to Janelle's calls for help. He grabbed Bridger's pocket knife, which was a 3-inch griptilian made by Benchmade. As you can see by the picture, this is not a large knife, but Brad began to slice away at the bear's neck in an attempt to cut off its head. The hope was that if they couldn't move the bear's massive body, maybe they could sever its head and untangle Bridger's flesh from its snout that way. When the flesh and hide were cut clear, Brad used a bone saw to finish severing the bear's head. Now, with the bear's huge head freed from its body, the men labored to untwist its jaws from Bridger's calf muscle. As soon as the last stretch tissues were untwisted, the bear's jaws popped open and Bridger's calf was released. It was now gray in color from lack of blood supply and trauma. The previous January, a helicopter crash had occurred very near to this bear attack site, and Bridger was the first person on the scene. He held two of the victims in his arms as their life passed. What he saw had traumatized him and caused him to swear off ever flying in a helicopter, but life has a funny way of making each of us eat our own words. As the rescue helicopter broke the silence with its approach, Bridger began to become upset. He loudly objected to the idea of being flown out and yelled out loud, "I'm not getting on that thing." Due to the stress and trauma of the situation, Bridger began to go into a state of shock and convulsed. It was probably better for him to lose consciousness than face too many of his own fears, after all he had experienced that day. As the female responder loaded Bridger into the helicopter, he looked up and told her he didn't want to ride in the helicopter. She calmly told him that she would make him a little more comfortable and reach across his chest and tightened a belt holding him on the gurney. She leaned down and whispered in his ear, "Honey, you don't have a choice." She quickly placed an IV in his arm and began to administer morphine to ease his pain. As soon as it took effect, Bridger said, "Let's go." After a helicopter flight through turbulent weather, Bridger and the crew safely arrived at a trauma center with a specialization in animal attacks. He underwent 4 hours of surgery to clean and close several bite wounds on his right thigh and calf muscle and suffered innumerable bruises and abrasions from the tumble down the hill. He received just over 200 stitches in the process. The pictures of Bridger's wounds and the dead bear are not fit for YouTube standards, so I have posted them on my Patreon account linked below. I do warn you, they are graphic, and there is a picture of a severed bear head there, so if you are unable to stomach those kinds of images, don't look at them. He had to go through weeks of painful physical rehabilitation and was laid up for the bear season while he recovered. He suffered long-term tissue and nerve damage in his right leg, but survived, all due to the fact that he grabbed his Glock with the Hornady rounds. Although Bridger's bear attack only lasted about 20 seconds, the effects of it will last a lifetime. Once he was able to check out his Glock, Bridger found bear hair between the guide rod and the slide of the pistol. This prevented the slide from returning to the firing position on the round that misfired. In order to get bear hair into this part of the gun, it would have to be fired at close enough proximity for the slide to move forward and trap bear fur inside the mechanics of the gun. Thankfully, Bridger was aware and able enough to chamber a new round to bring his bear attack to an end. After examining the facts surrounding this episode, I am left with a few questions for you. Why do you think this bear did not do what so many other bears do and run for its life when it saw Bridger? Do you think this bear was exhausted and frustrated enough by the dogs that it took out its angst on Bridger? Do you think bear spray may have prevented this bear attack? What do you think Bridger could have done differently to avoid this attack? I will be glad to read and respond to your thoughts, so please post them in the comment section below, and let's talk about it.
Thank you for watching Scary Bear Attacks. If you've enjoyed this episode, please consider clicking on the like button and clicking on the bell icon. We'll help you know when we post our new episodes. Posting our video links to your social media profiles furthers awareness, and it's fun. We slashed our prices in our merch store, linked below, so check out the bargains there while you shop. As a member of our human community, remember to adventure bravely and be careful out there, especially in bear country.
I would like to thank our Patreons, Rasmus LA1 for Dicking, Paul Wincoop, David Veda Jr., Eleanor Hardy, Patricia Hermanowski, Toussaint, Angela Hammett, Marvin Alexander, Pam Stevens, Lulu 0000, Splash Log, Trevor Hannon, Jesse J. Driss, Janelle Holly, Omar DeLeon, CJ, Avant, Kathy Ashuri, Diane Collier, Sandy Nielsen, Justin Land, Stephen Earl Smith, Stephen McLaughlin, AJ Miller, Homa Masters, Ricky Helms, David Atkins Shoulders, Repeat Josh Paz, Gerald Purcell, Justin Appropriate, Dan Kemp, CCC, NC, Alan LaFramboise, Regina Gilreath, Ballard, Sheldon Lewis, Sheila Baker, Messiah Kowalski, Carl Childers, Dion Lynch, Debbie Hannon, HTD for Life, Biotoxic Beast, Gary Eric, Seal Rose, Victor Senku, Abhishek Bunia, Tracy Green, Young Games 34 _ Nina Allison, Heather Lee, Christian Duran, Terrell, Matt Mochi, Connor Lavin, Stephen Wilkinson, Werner Voss, Ella Justin Curry, Susan Holt, Butterfield, Sebastian Kielak, Brandon Wizard Wood, Nicole N. Angel, Barnhill, Joey Pinter, Mauro Padano, Boobry, TJ Schools, Katie V. Wright, Gary Highland, Cody Love, Catsy Murphy, Andrews, Matt Bagney, Lindy Dawn, Alejandro Figueroa, Ian Romalor, Darcio Pacifico, Rose H., Lori McKay, Carrie Peters, Melissa Gottlieb, Megan Trend, Nathan P. Cole Rodriguez, Aurora, April Donovan, Ryan Cernicki, Chris Marler, Wayne Washington, Fluffy Feet, Cheyenne Greg Schaefer, April Donovan, and Drone Adventures. Your support means the world to me.